Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Heroes World Quarantine Podcast. I'm your host, Stupe. With me today is the owner and proprietor, at least one of them, of the Heroes World store in Markham, Ontario. That'd be Mr. John Ho. Say hello to the wonderful people at home.
Howdy, wonderful people at home.
And our resident Prince of Mischief, a variant of unknown origin, a variant Flash that, just unlike the other Flash, doesn't really run really fast. He's a negative Flash.
Yeah,
Rob Goodette.
Yeah, it's a slow trot really for me, and not because I don't have the powers, just because I'm just damn lazy. Hey, everybody.
Hey, I've always said Reverse Flash should run backwards, because if he's truly Reverse Flash, he should be going reverse.
He's doing what the movies are doing, which is slow-mo running, which is not the fast one, but you know, it is.
He should be doing the stick from Ace Ventura when he's in the insane asylum.
Yes,
he does everything in reverse, and that's what he should be doing
with the tutu, of course.
Of course, yes.
So thank you for joining us today. We are going to do two new shows that came out. Give you our thoughts on Amazon's very, very audacious 11
wait, you tell us. We'll wait. Go ahead.
Audacious, audacious, big epic series, A Wheel of Time, based on the beloved book. I cannot wait to ask John what it's about, to give us his plot summary. Yeah, John, get ready. And then we're going to talk about my favorite anime show of all time that's been recently ported over to live action, which is Cowboy Bebop.
Blade Runner. No,
the TV show? No, not the TV.
Yeah, Blade Runner.
I know new anime TV show.
Yeah, but
that's not his favorite. That's not his favorite.
Not my favorite. It's one of my favorite movies, but not my favorite anime.
Astro Boy.
No, Astro Boy's not good. Okay, here we go. We're gonna start with Amazon's A Wheel of Time. Big news came out years ago. Amazon was spending all this money. We're gonna do this giant Lord of the Rings, but in the interim, we're gonna do A Wheel of Time. This is based on a lot of books about the dragon, the reincarnation of one of the heroes of the past, and of course Robert Jordan's epic scale of science fiction weaving reincarnation and these people that can wield magic in a galaxy far, far away and a time far, far away as well. So John, tell us, what is A Wheel of Time? What happened in the first episode? What's going on? Do you know anything?
To my understanding, what I thought Wheel of Time, when they described it, when they say Wheel of Time, I feel like it's the cycle of life. That's like their whole like when you will join the wheel, or I don't know what it is.
Reincarnation. And then, yes, I've already helped you, John, because I knew you struggled.
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah, your summary actually told me a little more than I knew when I initially watched this. But to my understanding, there is Rosamund Pike is some type of magic user.
That's correct.
And she must be a big deal, I guess, from the head office of whatever the magic user is.
The head office, the home office.
Because everyone's like, oh, what's she doing here and stuff like that. Yeah. And she has come to this village. I don't know if she was drawn to the village or something. Maybe I missed it. Mm-hmm. But one of these four people is like the chosen one who will light their darkest hour, or whatever the plot point is.
Yeah.
It's Neo that is reincarnated.
That is my understanding. And I don't know if part of it is you have to have a braid in your hair to become a magic user or something, or you get thrown in the water. That part was a bit lost on me, but that was my understanding of Wheel of Time.
that was a ceremony in that small town to do magic users and yada yada, but it is the purpose of this first episode, as Rosemary Pike, as you mentioned, is trying to decipher which of these four is the dragon, the reincarnation of the hero of the past.
Do they mention why she can't determine which of the four? Is that just something
because they were one all of these four born 20 years ago, and she just can't figure out which one it is, because it could be any of them, any of the
or four, none of them,
or none of them. Well, no, I think she determined it was four because those monsters are coming to kill that small town. So the Trollocs, which are like trolls, I guess. Trollocs.
Were they Trollkin or Trolloc? They were Troll something.
Trollocs. I think there was
They were just Trolls Musical World Tour.
Yeah,
That's what it was.
That was a great movie,
what you
by
missed
the
was
way.
the musical. What you missed was
Justin
that
Timberlake.
they were actually singing Tool lyrics
Justin Timberlake
as
and
they were
Kendrick,
going through
yeah.
the forest.
That's right.
Singing
Yeah.
Tool, going through one of their greatest hits. They actually look like members of Tool as well, so it kind of worked out really in their favor.
No, they look at members of Guar, not Tool. Get your rock band straight.
I don't know but John, out of the four warriors and all that shenanigans, do you know why they were reincarnated and why in this storyline did you notice that only women had magic?
I did notice that.
Do you know why?
I did not know why.
I think it says at the very beginning, it says that men tried to wield magic and they corrupted it or it corrupted them, and became dark. So only women.
They tried to control the darkness, and in doing so plunged the world into despair. Thus all the women are like, you guys can't control this power, we're killing you, all your men. And that's at the beginning of this movie or the show, where there's that one guy who had magic powers was hunted by those women,
right?
And
okay,
power, thus we are killing you,
right? Yes,
because he was like, don't kill him, he's with me. And they're like, there's no one with
but when
you.
you guy disappeared, right?
It was a figment of his imagination.
It's magic.
He Fight Clubbed himself.
Yes. Spoilers for Fight Club. Okay, there we go. So Rob, knowing this big sparring episodic show,
nothing about it.
Give me your thoughts. What did you Amazon has some money to burn.
They do.
There's I would say 11 to 12 books.
Maybe.
Is this usually in a show like this, you put your best foot forward, you to what we love before, like Lost, you do your best pilot, you get people intrigued and into it. Because this show is dropping week by week, are you going to go back? Are you going to forget? Did this draw you in? Did this get you enthralled?
Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, it's really funny that you mentioned Lost, because while I was watching this, I thought to myself, this is the pilot. This is the I wish I was on an island. This is the first episode. And I was like, if I go back to the original pilot of Lost, there's a lot you don't know, but the simple thing is there was a plane crash, they're stranded on an island, and some weird shit is happening. When one of the characters says, guys, where are we? Like, that sets up the entire premise of the show. So I always think about like really strong pilot episodes, first episodes. And then I kind of apply them to these new episodes that we've been watching. And this is not like, I was very, I'm just gonna say I was confused at the beginning. I was like, what is the purpose? What are we here for? What is happening? I felt we just kind of got dropped in on something. And I was a little bit taken aback by everything that was happening. I am not familiar with the book or any of this. I'm not shitting on the property or with the people who have worked very hard. You can see there's a lot of money and CG effects put into this show, with the matte paintings and the backgrounds and everything else. I haven't heard anybody being excited about this show coming out. So nobody in my circle of friends, in which I include you two fine gentlemen, have been like clamoring. Nice. Oh yeah, keep interrupting me. Now you've been removed.
It's
so
funny.
but nobody that I've spoken to has said anything. Like, they're not like, oh my God, I can't wait for Wheel of Time to drop. I literally have not heard anything from anybody. So in watching this episode, I was a little bit, like I said, confused. I felt, I think it's natural to compare it to Lord of the Rings, because that is and Game of Thrones to some extent. And that's another pilot.
Yep.
When you watch Game of Thrones, it's very easy to understand what's kind of happening. Even though they're speaking in old agey time, verbiage, you can kind of figure out, especially that ending, with Bran falling. So in this, there is none of that. And so you're comparing it to these other two spectacles, and fairly or unfairly, that's what we do. And I have a difficult time trying to look at this and say, oh, this is something I can't wait to watch next week. Of the 2 shows that we're going to be talking about today, this is one that I would more than likely watch the second episode for, as opposed to the other show we're going to talk about. But if I have one criticism, I really liked halfway through, you have this big battle in this town. I didn't know it was a magical town, or they were doing a dance to magic. I thought they were just having a party. And these massive human beasts come out and are like bludgeoning everybody. And that's what I like. Yeah, give me some blood and guts and sword fighting. The problem is the camera is very shaky. You're supposed to be from the point of view of somebody else watching all this happening. And I thought to myself, when you watch a lot of these battles in the Game of Thrones, in Lord of the Rings, the camera is pulled back. You have a wide angle. You're actually able to see the action. You're able to see it. These were not CGI beasts. Like, to their credit, they used practical effects. People were dressed up in these outfits. I wanted to see it, though. Do you know what I'm saying? So it felt, at the end of the day, I kind of felt like I was watching a show that would have been on like the UPN network back in the 90s. That was,
CW Vancouver.
Yeah, one of those things on a set after a Baywatch. It was you'd be watching these syndicated shows after
Hercules, Xena,
exactly, or Xena. That's kind of how I felt at times about it. All that said, it's okay. It's enjoyable. I don't think you need to know anything. I don't know if it helps knowing anything going in. I don't know anybody who knows anything about this property. So
it's funny, Rob, that you said that, because I remember when I can go back, and I'm old, just like you guys. I remember in my elementary school, high school, like library, I would see the cover of this book. I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. It's like there's a knight on it. He's riding a horse and stuff, but I never read the book. It wasn't like a bit like, oh, it just looks cool, but it never crossed my path for something that I should read, because it was, there's already Lord of the Rings out. There are already other books. So I just never got around to it. But I know there is a subsect of people that are very much stands for this, who love this series, who love this book. It was just one of those things where it was very big in scale. There's a lot of different nations and towns and things in this storyline that is, again, epic in scale. Even the fact that we talk about the Wheel of Time as like reincarnation, that's actually not even the correct answer. John, do you want me to read the official answer before you go and give your thoughts?
For it.
At the dawn of time, a deity known as the Creator forged the universe and the Wheel of Time, which spins the pattern of ages using lives of men and women as its threads. The wheel has 7 spokes, each representing an age, and its rotation by the one power, which flows from the true source. The one power is divided into male and female halves, Satan and Satars, which work in opposition and unison to drive the wheel. Humans can use the power known as channelers, and the principal organizers and such channelers in the books called Senseigneurs and the servants of all in the old tongue. So again, it's like this the tapestry of it pushes the wheel forward, and I guess there's reincarnation. It's a lot of stuff.
Doesn't make sense. It's a lot of words put together that don't make sense.
To be fair,
all I thought about is Chandler from Friends. I can use the power of Chandler Bing. Okay,
to be fair,
that's what we'll do.
Era Iluvatar is the exact same thing in Lord of the Rings. It's like, by the way, do you know Aaron Iluvatar? He is the god of Lord of the Rings. And again, I say this, you're like, I don't know, but you'll find out an Amazon show, because they'll go into the details of why that is, and each different deity level in the Lord of the Rings, because there's a whole backstory. We just never got it in the movies, because why? It's just like how you find out that Gandalf is an angel. Do you know that Gandalf's an angel, John?
No, who's Gandalf?
There we go. John Howard.
Perfectly.
Yeah,
all right,
Gandolfini. He's a famous person, right? Rudolph Gandolfini or something like that. I don't
know. Rudolph Gandolfini. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
John, give us your thoughts on the show, because I don't want to go. I'll save my Lord of the Rings knowledge for the Lord of the Rings, because as much as I want to talk about Melkor, who is basically going to be talked about a lot of it, and there are the Melkor stands outside who, no surprise, he's the bad guy of Lord of the Rings. Who would have thought Melkor is the bad guy? But John, tell us your thoughts.
Right, you lost me again, but okay. So again, not as you can see, not really my genre. Lord of the Rings, I'm not big on. I haven't actually seen the second 2 movies in their entirety. So yeah, you can flame me all you want, but it's just not my genre. Game of Thrones, didn't really get into it. But I did like Rob's mentioning, like first episodes. Like, so I'll compare it to first episodes of shows of similar genre. Game of Thrones, I definitely understood more of what was going on. It definitely gripped me a bit more. I'm trying to think of what else is considered this fantasy. Xena and Hercules, Stu mentioned, and I think other people have mentioned it. This show does kind of lean more towards that kind of style, I feel. I really did like shows like Spartacus and things like that, but I feel like those are a different animal.
Merlin, that TV show back in the day, the medieval knights and young Merlin. No. There's a lot of medieval shows out there, or kind of that. I think there's like Knight or whatever, the one with Mark Hamill, or Crusade. There's like all these kind of new type of shows, but it's never been my genre and things like that. So when I was watching this, I actually, like 15 minutes in, I messaged Stu and I'm like, I'm almost done, right? But it's only 15 minutes in. I'm like, what is taking so long? So I don't know what it is about the early part of this show that just didn't get me at all. There was a lot of characters talking to each other. There was a lot of fancy sets. Shout outs to you guys with nice TVs and stuff. I actually watched this at a family member's house, and they have like a nice TV with the crazy high def and all that stuff. So it looked very similar to, like, when you watch those Hallmark movies and they're like a little too crisp, a little too digitally defined and stuff like that. I was like, what is up with this? I can see.
Well, that's your buddy's TV show though. That's you got their high dynamic range on that.
Yeah. Maybe a setting was wrong or something. Yeah. And I was like, this looks really bizarre. So then I had to switch to, when I got home, I watched it on my computer monitor or whatever, and it did look a lot better. So it does look hella nice. So I don't know what those settings were or whatever, or maybe I just wasn't used to seeing things that clearly. But it's a beautiful show. It looks like everyone is doing a great job of acting and interacting, although it does look funny when you fake clean up stuff. I don't know if you guys noticed that. Yeah. They're cleaning up the tavern and they're kind of like fake taking things off the table. I'm like, seriously, guys, like I feel like you need a little bit more effort in that department. And it pretty much, like, I was gonna abandon ship. I was gonna come on here and go, I stopped after like 20 minutes, but I stuck with it. And then the Trollkin or whatever the hell thing shows up. Trollic, yeah, whatever. And that was crazy. Yeah. So what's the lead's name? Is it Rosamund? I thought it was Rosamund.
Rosamund. Yeah,
Rosamund Pike. Yeah.
Rosamund Pike.
Gone Girl.
Yeah, she was in Jack Reacher. I really loved her in that. Yeah, so I do like her, and I was like, oh man, great, she's in this. And then she does the narration. It sounds cool, and she does the accent. I don't know if that's their native accent or whatever.
Well,
she's British.
She starts whipping out the magic and stuff. I'm like, okay, you kind of got me here. And then they're fighting these beasts. First order of business, guys. If we ever get invaded by like 10-foot, 12-foot Minotaur-like beasts, and they're attacking me, and they've got me in a death grip, and one of you guys runs over and grabs a bow and arrow and starts shooting it with a bow and arrow, I'm gonna kick your ass.
You won't be. You'll be dead.
I will be, because the guy like shoots it's like I'm gonna go grab this rock and throw it at the guy. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But yeah, overall it's a cool concept. The 4 people on a quest. I'm not quite sure. Like, that guy killed his own wife, right?
Yeah.
Like,
he was in rage.
He was in some type of rage.
Yeah.
So I don't quite get where that's. I guess maybe he's just gonna really regret that, or something. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of cool, and they all ride off into the sunset, and they're gonna quest together. And then they had that cool. She had the cool bodyguard. I forgot what his name was. I've seen him in some. Did he play Maverick in the Wolverine movie or something like that? I'm trying to think of who that guy was. The rope around his head.
Oh, you mean Landis Mandragon? I don't think Mandragon. You're right. He was Agent Zero.
I think he played Maverick, not really Maverick. But he was supposed to be Maverick in the Wolverine movie. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. He's supposed to be Maverick or whatnot. Yeah, you're right. You got it right, John. Yeah.
Yeah. When he
was also in Big Hero 6. But yeah, you're right. As well as Criminal Minds.
Oh yeah, makes sense. Everyone was in Criminal Minds at some point.
Yeah. Rob only knows Rosemary Pike from 007. He's like, yes, the time when she was in.
Yeah. I thought she was a relative unknown. I'm like, this girl is really cool in Jack Reacher. Where did she show up again? It's a big deal, Bond girl.
Yeah, or if Andre was here, he'd mention that she was also in Doom. She's like, remember?
Right.
She was McCoy's sister in Doom.
Right.
So
with the Rock.
But he
The
was
Rock,
in, he was in,
yeah, The Rock.
that was Andre's favorite movie. That's Andre's favorite Bond movie.
Yeah. Doom.
She was
Okay.
in no,
With The
Die
Rock?
Another Day. No, that was his
yes.
favorite Bond movie. She was in Die Another Day. Yeah, so he should be a complete stand for her.
I don't know if those are facts or not, but yeah, I would maybe consider tuning into another episode to see a little bit more of her if she is the lead actress.
I thought he liked the one with the guy with the keyboard thing.
That was his favorite villain, but his favorite Bond movie was Die Another Day.
Yes, because
Okay,
John.
so if you guys
John
haven't
goes
seen
back
it,
to that
they
movie
did a
because
special on James Bond.
Because John loves Rick Yoon, and how much is Rick Yoon is in that movie? So John's
That's
all
right.
of a sudden like, wait, that's the one with Rick Yoon, Fast and the Furious, as Tan Lin Zhao. or
Diamond
something.
Face.
Diamond Face. Yeah, you're in Diamond Face. Yeah. Okay, so nonetheless.
This is how bad this show is. We're talking about other properties.
John,
I don't think it's like bad per se.
Will you watch any more of this?
I think it'll take a lot for me to like with all the options that we have right now.
Yes.
I wouldn't say it was bad. Like I think the point that they ended up getting to at the end of the episode, I think was good. And if I did take the time to go back and rewatch some of the intro, which I guess is the groundwork they're laying of their characters, but I don't know what it is about it. Maybe they just needed to do it at a faster pace to establish these characters and stuff like that. But the point that they got to at the end is interesting. Yeah.
I think they needed to listen, you've heard this acronym. We've said it here. You've probably had it people at work, or you've said it to your whatever. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Like I really think sometimes when you are adhering to the source material, if you're doing these voiceovers to set something up, sometimes you need to dumb it down for the average person. Right? Like this is not a show that you can throw on the background. We've talked about shows like this where you can throw it on the background, you can kind of quasi pay attention, but you can do your laundry, you can make your dinner, this and that. This is not a show that you can do that because it does require you to kind of try to pay attention because to get to the next scene or the next, battle or whatever. The problem is that I think, and I'm assuming that they are so entrenched in the source material, they're expecting you to understand what's going on and you can't. And this is where I think, Lost, Game of Thrones, even 24, any of those really solid first episode shows that went on for a number of years, they dumbed it down to let the average person understand. And I kind of feel that we've now watched a show made by a bunch of fans of a source material that we're not familiar with, and I kind of feel like we're lost. We're like at the
Okay. One second. So. John, so back to you for a quick question. Do you think this show would have benefited from having it all drop at the same time, or do you think it's going to be hurt by the fact it's a weekly release?
No, I've actually grown quite to like the weekly release because now it would.
But for this show specifically, how slow it is, and like, will it be helped that it's only once a week? When
I think so.
Or should have been like Amazon dropped 3 episodes at once because it's a really slow. This is a real slow.
I think this will work because after getting to that action, the final act, I guess, of you, whatever you call it, you will potentially be hooked, and you can go back and rewatch the introduction of these characters.
Shouldn't have to.
And things like I don't know. I feel like some shows you do want to rewatch and you'll understand more. So I think it's okay. And maybe if they dropped too many at once, it would have been
a terrible thing when you have to rewatch a show because it's like, well, you'll get there, but just rewatch the first episode 3 times.
I don't even know if you need to go back. That might have just been like testing ground to get these actors and actresses used to each other, maybe, because I feel like a lot of shows in their first season or whatever, it takes them a while to get comfortable and kind of jive together.
It's so there was comedy, a lot of John. You get it for comedy, but this is live.
Hey, maybe
this is
maybe it will be. Who grabs a bow and arrow in the middle of a freaking axe fight? Like, it's ridiculous.
Again, I'm going to answer that question, Stu, and I'm going to say that I think it actually hinders not being all dumped at once. I think setting up a property like this, listen, Amazon has to take a look at the playing field. What's come out on Netflix, which they do dumps, what's coming out on Disney Plus, and you're getting into the holiday season. Is this a show that's going to keep people coming back in a busy schedule on a weekly basis? Yes, they've dropped the first 3, so I'm assuming there's 7 more episodes coming out. That's 7 weeks. That takes us into past Christmas.
Did
right?
3 episodes drop?
Yeah. So,
okay.
So are you really going to be invested now after watching the first 3 come back for the next 7 weeks? I think this probably would have benefited from a full season drop. let it burn, let it mature, let people find it over the course of the holidays. And then potentially you could look at then dropping it weekly for season 2, right? Because you've built up that audience. I think, my personal opinion, this is a very difficult show on the first episode to walk into, to then say, okay, you might be interested in watching the next episode and maybe episode 3, but are you going to remember on a weekly basis that this is coming out, or are you going to let it build up and finish it, like binge it all? But will you remember those first episodes? Like, this is what I messaged Stu and I said, I don't know. I think I'm just gonna let this one build up and then watch them all. Yeah. But it's not gonna be I'm not gonna be like clamoring for it.
Appointment. It's not appointment TV. I think the difference is from this and the Marvel shows we do is the Marvel shows are very polished and it's quick and it leaves you wanting more, regardless if we complain about it only being 30 minutes at times. For example, The Mandalorian. This one is just, it goes on and you're like, all right, I'm good. Like the fact that, drop the 3 like Amazon usually does. After the first one, I was like, I'm good. I'm like, I don't know if I want to watch more. Rob and I were chatting privately. Do we wait till all of it drops? I'm like, at this point, I might as well wait because my interest is waning. And it's going to take a lot of work to get me to really give my time, knowing, there are more shows coming out in the holiday season and movies and more things are dropping. So I think Amazon should have really, to Rob's point, this is a very busy schedule. Drop more than not and see what happens. I think they're just banking on what's worked for them for The Boys and what's worked for Ted Lasso, or what's worked with the Marvel shows, which is pushing people weekly, having that weekly conversation. But when a show like this is
did Jupiter's Legacy all drop at once?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
That was Netflix though, right?
Yeah, but if they spread that out, at least they would have not been canceled right off the bat.
No,
I don't think
it would have.
No, they would have enjoyed however many 8 weeks of the show actually being on. So.
Here's the thing. The ratings for that show were great. It wasn't a problem about people watching. If you look at the metrics of minutes watched, that show was always in the top 10 of streaming shows. Like if you look at the Nielsen, all the ratings, it was a popular watched show. That, and we speak about before, just because the Rotten Tomato score says one thing doesn't mean the audience score says something different. People love that show. It's just a matter of the story kind of went off the rails. We saw how difficult it was to produce. Money was a big factor.
Are we talking about Jupiter's Legacy?
Yeah, Jupiter's Legacy. It was expensive to do, John. Like we talked about how expensive that show was, and we're like, how did it cost this much? And the costumes and just production costs. And it was just like, it's going to go higher, and it wasn't worth Netflix time to be like, the ratings aren't a boom enough for us to do it. And that was pretty much it. When the show doesn't make enough buzz or enough money, regardless of how many people watch it, they just cancel it. So Wheel of Time is lucky because, again, it's an Amazon show and they'll potentially just give another season and throw money at it. But we'll see. We thought that Netflix was going to just fix everything. It's like, Netflix has money to burn. Unfortunately, they don't, apparently, but Amazon's a different beast. Maybe it does have more money. It's going to sprawl out. So,
you look at a lot of these shows, and if you look at the net, so you can look at Squid Games that came out, right? That show obviously was in the top 10 for since it came out in September, so 2 months worth. And people were eating it up like crazy because there was something in each episode that made you want to go back to then continue. It doesn't have to be a cliffhanger finale at the end of each episode. There's something in the episodes. Look at Game of Thrones. All HBO shows are always weekly, but it's enough that you're like, oh my God, I can't wait for next week to continue seeing it. It doesn't have to be a cliffhanger ending on each episode. There's something in it that hooks you.
Well, this show so far, jump in for a second. The example for Lost is they talk about hanging the lantern. Lindelof talks about it in the writers' room that every time they got together and talked about it, they would hang the lantern before the commercial break because they planned it for commercials and also planned it for the end of the episode. So you got to hang a lantern to get people to come back to it because they're commercials and people sometimes turn to different channels back in the day. Can you imagine that?
In between
the channels. Yeah. So they plan it. It's different for shows now that are on streaming, but you gotta, to Rob's point, have it going. So needless to say, rating the show out of 10, John, what are you saying? Episode 1.
For episode 1, just because the beginning, I really was going to eject and be like, yeah, I'm not down with this. So they needed to get to the other point. Well, again, not my genre show. So maybe they didn't want as audience member or whatever. Yeah. So I'd give it the production quality is high.
Yeah.
The talent did seem good. I didn't identify anyone as like poorly acting or like not buying them as a character or whatever. So I'd say it's still maybe like a maybe just because I'm not going to continue it. I probably have to give it like maybe a 6 out of 10. But I think quality wise, it is up there. It's a nice show. It's a nice looking show.
Rob,
excuse me. Yeah, I'm going to match John. I'm going to give it a 6 as well. I am going to go back and kind of continue just to kind of see. It's definitely not my. It's definitely not my genre, but I'm going to give it a go. But I have to make a decision on whether I'm going to watch these next 2 episodes now or just wait to binge the whole thing once it's finished dropping. So,
yeah, I didn't want to cheat and watch the other 2 episodes because that's not fair. When you do a pilot, you do a pilot. It's the best one, not the best 3 episodes. You don't get the luxury anymore with now the content coming out to be like, well, if you just watch the first 6 episodes, like that was the biggest thing where I would say back in the day, it's like, oh my God, DS9 is the best show ever, but you got to get through season 1. And then, people are like, oh, it's like, no, watch season 1, just get through it. Now I'm just like, just bypass season 1, get to season 2, jump to these episodes because time matters now. When back in the day, I was saying, well, you really earn it by watching season 1. Now I'm just changed my opinion completely. Be like, hey, watch these episodes to get you in it. And that's it. I can't ask someone to trudge through mediocrity to get something good. It's kind of like when people talk about animes like Naruto. It's like, don't worry, just get through the first 50 episodes. I'm like, whoa.
That's a commitment.
You don't say get through
episode 110 hits. Oh my God.
Hot damn. It's kind of the same thing with like One Piece. It's like as people know, I was trudging through that episodes through the pandemic. I'm like, I'm finally going to get through One Piece. And now I'm finally up to date. But it took me a whole pandemic to watch so many episodes of One Piece to get. And now I'm just like, I'm there. But it took me forever. And I would never ask anyone to like, don't worry, just start from episode 1 and see what happens. So these are the problems with these giant episodic 100 episode shows. It's kind of Game of Thrones. It's like, at this point, skip it. Which gets us to our next show. Needless to say,
you didn't give it a rating. What was your rating for?
Same thing as 6. It misses the mark on so many things on a Netflix show. Even the beginning when Rosemary Pike is speaking, just quickly, both of you had mentioned where she's talking about the description. At least Lord of the Rings, they showed us what happened. She's just saying, we're just doing landscape. Like, you don't have CGI budget to show me a CGI spinning wheel or like CGI characters. Like, give us something. In Lord of the Rings, when you first show up, boom, it's like, we hear Kate Blanchett do a wonderful soliloquy, and then we see all the music, the beautiful music show up, and then you see the ring and you see this battle happen. There's stuff going on, and she talks about the men, and you don't see anything. It's like, here you go, here's what you got. I'm like, really? You don't have the money to just drop and
you have to hold the viewer's hand to lead them into this adventure.
Show and visualize what's going on, and they didn't even bother doing that. I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is what the show is. We're not going to spend the money. Like, even Lord of the Ring, like even Thor 2, they talk about it in the commentary. It's like Thor 2, the not great one. In the beginning of the movie, they talk about that whole scene in the beginning of Thor 2 didn't exist until after, where they're like, we should CGI this. In the beginning, they didn't have that act. And then they talked about this battle, and they CGI'd that whole fight sequence and basically made a cutscene and be like, okay, here's a story. Imagine Thor: The Dark World without that whole.
I've never gotten past that part. I've never watched
blue
that
people,
whole part,
right? Where they're
like blue and stuff, right?
Yeah, like Bor, like Odin's father. It's like, oh, here are the dark elves, and this whole sequence didn't exist because people watching the movie were like, what's going on with these dark elves? I don't understand. And they had to throw in a whole sequence CGI to make up for it. So this show also was lacking. I wish someone said that too. But again, you're holding it to the standards of Thor: The Dark World, and probably it's a low bar. Okay, we're going to jump to my favorite show right now, briefly talk about it because Cowboy Bebop is here. I have been very guarded because it's my favorite show. I've talked to Rob about trying to get him to watch the anime show when it dropped. It is my favorite show just because it's tight, it's short, and it's everything you want in a space cowboy western, more so than Firefly even. And come at me, gray coats or brown coats. John, when we dropped the trailer first dropped, we talked about how it kind of looked like cosplay. John Cho, a lot of the characters in it, people were very people love this show, and it didn't matter who you really cast because no one was going to be able to fit into these characters because you saw them, especially Faye. There's a lot of I guess vitriol. A lot of people saying that the actress cast wasn't the Faye character. They were fine with John Cho.
You cannot create that character in real life. She's not physically possible.
she's like a Barbie. She's proportionately incorrect. Yes. But it kind of also like Daniel Pineda. It's to a genre of the 90s when and come out. My apologies. When anime shows made women look like women and not children, because now when you watch anime, every girl looks like she's like 16. She's a woman. So like again, this is the thing that anime's kind of transition more
it's one of anime's, I don't know if you would call it a trope or a strength or whatever you want to call it. It's one of the things that anime is known for, which is a product of its time. And it's still going on today. So it's not like Stu mentioned, every anime has changed their female characters to something else. There are definitely people, and that's even just media things today. Sometimes the women have curves.
Yep. So Rob, what is Cowboy Bebop about?
Are you talking about this episode? Like, what's
this episode should tell you everything it's about. What's it about?
So, it takes place in a future timeline in space where John Cho's character, I think he's just referred to as Cowboy. Him and his buddy, who's got a bionic arm, I don't remember his name. They fly the spaceship Bebop, and they are essentially bounty hunters.
Yep.
Like Dog the bounty hunter, who are paid to reel in criminals and then take them back to a planet jail area where they get paid for their services minus a bunch of deductions. And essentially, this literally is watching Dog the bounty hunter through an anime eye, because it looks like each episode they're just off getting fulfilling their bounties because that's what they do.
Okay, Rob, that's a very good assessment. You were able to watch 2 episodes, so hopefully that was good. Yeah, you're right. It is a time and space where Earth is almost uninhabitable, but you'll find out that shortly. Spoiler alert. And the world basically people have now moved to different colonies across space, and the police. It's a wild frontier, and the police can't capture all these criminals. So they've put bounties out, bounty hunters, which are referred to as cowboys, to go capture said bounties. And it's about these essentially tropes of characters, which are down on their luck, people with shady / untold of histories joining together to collect bounties. And sort of like Guardians of the Galaxy, they are losers. They are skilled but losers that are together, working together to collect bounties. And the crew, which will be
the definition of ragtag.
Definition of ragtag, 4 people, which the 4th has not been introduced yet, come together and Ein,
form Voltron,
the dog, combine together to make a team. So it is
form a one-armed Voltron.
Yeah, one-armed Voltron. It is each week. The whole series revolves around them collecting a bounty. And just like Westerns and down on the luck people, they always screw up. They don't collect the right person. They let the person go. They die. They never get the right amount. So thus the continuing cycle of trying to reach for that next payday. The Willy Loman-esque, like the next deal is going to save us. For all you Death of a Salesman stands out there. This is the beauty and the sadness of Cowboy Bebop, which I love in the anime and why I keep on going back to it. Which, spoiler alert, is not in this TV show. So, John.
Oh, wow. Okay.
John, tell us your thoughts, because I had begged everyone to watch the show, but also begged everyone to watch the anime. I asked Rob, I'm like, hey, I don't ask for much. Personal favor, watch the anime too. So, John, tell us your thoughts on the live action first episode.
Yeah, so as an old school anime head like Stu, Cowboy Bebop does have a special place, but it probably does not resonate with me as much as it did with Stu. I was more into the full out sci-fi stuff. So even so much so that I don't know if I ever completed the original series when it aired. I might have been like 2 episodes shy, or maybe I didn't watch the movie. Yeah, because it wasn't my genre. I was busy watching other stuff. But I really wanted to come on here and kill this, especially we watched the trailer, the opening intro, and even the intro to this episode.
Yeah.
It's really kind of, my best description is it's a little rough. So the costumes look a little bit over the top. The action is not quite there in especially in that opening scene, which is kind of weird because that opening scene doesn't exist in the anime. I think they just talk about a job that went wrong. So they decided to add this scene in and add some action in, and the action for some reason wasn't quite there that first episode on initial watch. And then as the episode carried on, I was almost very similar to Wheel of Time, ready to. I was like, oh man, oh boy, this is not quite cutting it. It's kind of like some people use the term try hard or whatever like that. It was kind of like doing like all these weird things. But then after I kind of accepted that what it's doing and that this is a different medium. Like originally I was going to come on and say, you write for your medium, the way that they did this action here, it would work in an anime, but it won't work in here. But actually it's got a charm to it. It actually the way they do it, it's kind of like old school. Like we're maybe spoiled now with all these John Wicks and Bourne Identities and that kind of stuff, the way that they're doing fight choreography and stuff. So this made it felt like an 80s over the top action, like when they do it, like it's very defined. You see people turn things to the side to try and get score, like, you know, that punch or that hit or whatever. So I felt like it did really work in that. And then once Faye Valentine shows up in the first episode, and maybe Stu's going to talk about it later, she doesn't actually do that in the anime. I think it was really needed to add that interjection of a third character that is a little bit more of the comic relief. John Cho and I don't know who the other performer's name, the guy who plays Jet Black. They work well as the characters individually, but they weren't really gelling at first. And then when they added the Faye Valentine character, I felt like I felt like the dynamic actually got a little bit better. So they need to get her into the mix more, but it also could be attributed to, like, sometimes shows in their early seasons, when you go back and watch them, there's everybody's still finding their spot. So I think it'll work.
You are very generous, John, because I have some scathing things to say. All right, we're gonna
stay on the positive side. Yeah. It looks great. I think they're doing a really good job at selling this world with the mix of the old, like, classic. They have classic muscle cars, and then all of a sudden they have the flying ships. So I think they're doing a good job of making it visually. It's not perfect, obviously, but they're doing a good job of making it look grand. And then I really like the format of the episodes. So Stu's mentioned it before. Cowboy Bebop did single serve episodes, which is different from anime back then, because everything would be a long running story. So much that they called them OVAs instead of calling them TV shows or whatever, because they were all linked. So I like that Cowboy Bebop, this one is doing like, oh, we're doing an adventure in episode, and there's a little something going on in the background that's all going to link up. I think that's 100% what Netflix should have done with the Marvel shows and a lot of their shows that are coming up now. I think they need to make some of them episodic, so you can just fire up your Netflix, watch an episode of something, and then get on with your day. So overall, I ended up liking it quite a bit, and I think it is going to work for a particular audience that, and some of those audiences are going to be people that would have no interest in watching that anime. So I think that's very cool that we're going to see this happen. And then my one critique is, like, I don't know what the judgment call on John Cho's hair was. I don't know if he need, like, Spike. I don't know if he doesn't really have long hair. He has like kind of
it's anime hair. It doesn't count because it's like, it's hair that only some particular Asians can do, like the big poofy hair, because you need a lot of hair and a lot of volume, and it just doesn't port over to real life. It's like when you watch anime
for some reason, but when I see his hair, it doesn't make me think of what his hair looked like in the anime. It makes me think
the anime
of like
hair
a 60s
it doesn't count
Japanese movie or something.
Yeah. Anime, if you watch the picture of the anime, it's not the same. Like, and Rob will jump to Rob.
I think they could have given him a more kind of hairstyle that you typically see him rock. But you know,
John, if you didn't do that then as well, it's like you're teetering that line between like a tribute band and like Weird Al when it comes to like your parody. Like, you have to choose your lane, and they're like, we're trying to make them look as much as you can, but people are gonna be upset no matter what, because the costume kind of look like cosplay. But the same as like when you see the cosplay people do it, The hair is always the drop. Like everyone does an anime costume, like at Anime North or at the fan con, and when you see the hair, if you do it right, it looks kind of like the character, but if you do it wrong, it's just lifeless and it's flat. You need big, ridiculous stuff. That's what it is. So we're gonna go to Rob, get his thoughts on the live action adaptation. Rob, because you know nothing. You went with an empty mind.
Yeah, so like I've seen some anime shows and movies in my late teens and early 20s, folks. I talk about this. I liked my marijuana, and I would love to get baked and watch Ghost in the Shell and Akira and the Guyver stuff. But I never watched Cowboy Bebop, but I have a familiarity, like an understanding. It's in this brain as I understanding, okay, it's out there. It's a pop culture thing. I get it, but I have no understanding of it. But I actually wrote this to Stu because I said, I'm not going to remember this tomorrow. So I'm putting it here, which is true because it's still very early for me. I haven't had enough coffee. I said that the showrunners skew so heavily to match the look and feel of the anime that they're bound by the rules laid out rather than making it their own. And it's like a shot for shot remake of Psycho is what I use as an example. And the reason I'm saying that is that as a guy who never watched the anime, I'm watching it. I know that an anime exists, and I feel like I'm watching a live action version of what has come before it, as opposed to an interpretation of a property. And I think that is like, this is a love letter to Cowboy Bebop from these creators and these actors. Like, I think you could tell they love this property so much so that for me, I think it detracts from allowing, just like we talked about Wheel of Time, the average person to kind of walk into this and really kind of enjoy it, because I feel like you have to be in on what's happening. And I'm not in on it. Again, I don't want to shit on their property. I think there's a lot of love in this, but the problem is that it's the dialogue. It feels like it comes from like 1999. Like the interaction between Spike, John Cho, and what was it?
Mustafa, Jet Black.
I was gonna say Jack Black, but Jet Black, yeah.
Jet Black, the black dog.
Jack Black.
Their dialogue back and forth together, it feels like they are, and I'm probably wrong, but it feels like they are lifting word from word from the anime, and it doesn't work. Like, you know, it's hard to pull word for word dialogue and interpret it into live action. It doesn't flow the same as it does on an animated property, whether it's anime or Americanized cartoons or however you want to. You can't do it's different storytelling medium. And so I feel like because they are so bound by these rules that have been set out in 1999 in this anime property, it doesn't allow the actors to grow, to expand on that character, to make it their own. And this is the problem. As I'm watching this, I feel like I have no interest in continuing, because it feels like I'm just watching a live action interpretation of something that already exists. I want it to be its own. And this is the problem.
Like a Broadway play version of Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, but you know what? Even listen, you want to talk about A Few Good Men was a play, right? Aaron Sorkin wrote that as a play. It is still produced and presented as a play in certain stuff, but then you watch the movie and there's a lot more to it. Like it's an interpretation of a product that is made for different medium, and it's okay. I do feel bad for the filmmakers, showrunners, however you want to call them, because I feel like there is no winning in this. They either do a shot-for-shot remake and make it skew so heavily towards the source material that you turn off certain people, even fans. Like I'm sure that Stu will be in that category, or you broaden that and you say, "Hey, this is our interpretation of this IP," and you're turning off people as well. I don't know. Did we really need this? I guess if you're going in this direction, did we really need this live action version of this if you were not going to take that risk and that chance of making it your own? And that, for me, is what really pulls me out of this. Stylistically, like that opening, the cold open is what it's typically known as, I thought was really cool. I thought it was okay. I don't mind the action shots. You know, they use the Dutch angles akin to Batman 66 show to accentuate some of this stuff, to make it really comic-y, to make it
felt like Stumptown. You know, Stumptown's got like that little bit of like comedic injection into their action.
But Stumptown though still felt like it was grounded in a real world that we can understand. This was way out there. And so, it looked great, but unfortunately for me, like the biggest thing for me is it's showing up on my continue watching section on Netflix. I got to get rid of that because I don't think I'm ready.
Let's watch like five other things.
Let's jump because John skimmed through the episode 1 sacrilegious. So I'm not gonna even bother asking you, John, because that's like me going to a card show and just walking by some chargers and not looking at the details. Like, yeah, I've seen the charger before. Who cares?
You can do that.
No, John. You give it the respect it deserves. Rob, you watched the anime episode 1 after I begged and pleaded you. Tell me your thoughts on watching the anime episode 1 compared to the live action. Did you watch it in English or Japanese?
No, in English.
Either way, perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
So and so it actually, watching that, reinforced my opinion on the dialogue between the characters. It's just a different storytelling medium. It was much quicker. It was more finite. Episode 1 anime dealt with the
Just
couple.
two people. Yep.
The two people, the couple, they're going after the couple, and she's, the pregnant lady who's not really pregnant. Little spoilers, and so I didn't mind the interpretation of that in live action, but I felt it was like that episode's 49 minutes of the live action, and this is a 22-minute episode, and you can really tell like they pulled the taffy to fill out that 49 minutes. And so the battle between Spike and this couple, even when it was on, terra firma, was a lot more action-packed and faster getting to it. It felt very dragged out. The dialogue between Spike and I can't remember the woman's name, by the taxi was like, okay, like what's happening? What's going on here? Right. So I liked the 22-minute episode anime. I thought it got to the point faster, but I think that I don't know. It's 26 episodes of the anime, I think, right? Around that.
That's correct. Yep.
And there's only 10 episodes of this season. I don't know if they're doing the season 2. So I don't know if they're trying to take all 26 and dump it into these 10.
No, it's not. I as someone who watched all of it, I watched all 10 episodes of Cowboy Bebop because I love the show. And it is each episode is dragged out and bloated. So each episode's one of this TV show episodes, and they just basically added storylines and characters stuff to draw it out. Essentially, what you're not seeing is that as you move forward in the show, they do so much background on Julia and Vicious that I did not ever want to know. Julia's supposed to be this femme fatale character, and when you just don't dump load this thing, it's like, oh, she's just a woman that's stuck between Vicious and Fearless or Spike Spiegel. Like, these are the things she has to deal with, and you're like, this is not what I signed up for. Here's a whole storyline with Vicious. I'm like, I don't care about Vicious.
I was like, did I forget about this from the anime?
We never. That's the thing about Westerns and the show, is that it leaves you wanting more. It doesn't give you this information. And John, I push back and fight back with you about the comedy of Faye. When you watch that first episode with Spike and Jet, the comedy is there. Like, they butchered my favorite line of all anime in that show, because in this episode in the anime, they never talk about the fact that how they say they're broke in 30 seconds is, here's some beef and peppers. And then Spike's like, where's the beef? And it's like we can't afford the meat. Like, you just eat your peppers. And then Spike is like, oh my God, this food. And then he says, they say hunger's the best spice. He's like, he's just knowing that they're poor and they're just eating. That's the thing. And like, when the first interaction, the comedy is when he first meets that woman, she buys the food. You see Spike eating her food and like a giant anime bow in his mouth. He's like, you're grabbing everything. And like, the comedy isn't in it. It's just nuanced and small to anime. And just like, you see the characters. And when the anime does it well, is that even though they have a bunch of characters coming, they're not forcing Faye down our throats. It's like, here's just two dudes, learn about Spike, learn a little bit about Jet, but this episode's all about Spike, and then episode 2 will introduce it slowly. It's what anime does really well. It's like even One Piece. They start off with one character and then they add in stuff as they trickle along. And this one, when they added Faye, I'm like, what's the point of her being here? Like, just this dialogue scene of like, I'm trying to catch this woman. And to Rob's point, it goes the opposite direction, where I guess Andre and me are like, we want more. And then this is the example of actually, no, we say we want more, but this is the wrong more. It's just story and characters that we don't need to know any about. And even the whole thing about Jet and his family, there's a whole thing about a doll later on about like, it's just all over the place. And you just don't know what they're doing. I go back to my last point about, are you a tribute band or are you are you Weird Al? Are you
doing an interpretation of a song?
Are you doing a parody? Because I can't, like, they're constantly back and forth between, yeah, we're a tribute band. No, we're a parody. We're a tribute band. And if you can't figure out what you are, which the show can't figure out what it is, then it's doomed to fail. And watching 10 episodes of this, I just sat there going, oh man, I just go back and watch the anime. Because what I loved about the anime is that each episode, it's kind of like Community. They do different things all the time. There's like different genres of music. There's a heavy metal episode, Heavy Metal Queen, and like with a trucker and the badass, trucker that's in space and dealing with that storyline, or like the aliens episode that I tell Rob, I'm like, you know what, maybe that's, even if you don't watch Cowboy Bebop anymore, Rob, watch this one episode where it's an aliens parody, and that's it. Like, the characters work well in this 22-minute scope and leaves you wanting more. And I would say, even though the show has been a complete gong show, just watch the anime. Just watch the anime.
I think it's going to work for this particular crowd that doesn't want to watch the anime or has no interest watching the anime.
It does a disservice to Julia and Vicious, and it's just like, and they're
but do you think though that you're
miscast.
too? Yeah, but do you think though that you're so? And we talked about this with Andre. That you're so entrenched into source material that it's very difficult to be able to accept a new version of it. Like,
no, because without,
or would you have preferred that they did in a different interpretation? Would you have preferred that?
I think what they've done is that they've kept the main storyline, but they've interjected this storyline with Vicious and Julia because they're trying to interact like most of Western, like, this is the big bad and we need to know more about the big bad. It's like, no, we don't need to know who the big bad is. The big bad is Vicious. He shows up in the series only like 3 episodes, and that's all we need to know. This one, they're like, we got to give him a storyline. We got to tell him what's going on. Like in the storyline of the anime, it's like, he's just there. He's a badass. He's a sword. That's it. I don't need to know anything about him outside of that. And it's just like most Westerns are. It's the big guy goes into town. You don't follow him through the other town to find out why he's the bad guy. Like, that's the trope of Westerns. You don't need to know everything about the character. And now they're like, well, here's this storyline. Here's that one. And to pigeonhole Julia to be this character is like basically stuck between a love triangle, 2 men. It's like, it's just demeaning. It's like, oh, she was this character who's trying to like run away with Spike, and there's a whole thing about, them leaving the syndicate together and all stuff. And then now it's like, oh, woe is me, I'm stuck with Vicious, but I want to be with Spike, and I just don't know what to do. It's like, no, she's a capable person, and just putting her in this situation where it's just stuck between 2 men. It's just a question of like, in the year of our Lord 2021, that's the best you can come up with. Like, she couldn't be a syndicate member herself. She's just there. It's like this whole thing, without going into too much spoilers, just seems off. So I know, Rob, you're saying it, but
yeah,
sometimes, like you said in the first part, keep it simple, stupid. Like, it's so tight and compact at what it is. Watching episode 1 of Bebop, there's nuances of it that you get, and it will be slowly doled out as to 26 episodes of anime. This is just like, here it is. We're going to jam through this, give you more storyline. Like, I don't even think in the anime, I never knew if Jet had a family. And now I'm like, oh no, he has a family.
I think it's a new.
It's like, here's his
new
ex-partner.
addition.
I'm like, all this other stuff. I'm like, what is happening here? Like, I don't need to know any of this. Like, it doesn't make, like, again, the point of having people with shady backgrounds is that you don't need to, like,
right,
when
it's supposed to be shady, you don't need to know who they are, because it takes away
does happen. There's gravitas too. You keep on alluding to it. It's like, well, like, there's no. When there's difference between like showing and saying it. So when an anime show, when they say it, it's gravitas. It's like, okay, well, we don't know. They didn't show cutscenes of it. This one now, there's so many cutscenes of what happened in the past. When they finally do say it, it's like we're expecting something much bigger. So there's, again, what I love about Bebop and what it did in the first episode too is that it shows that the world truly is a melting pot. Like, when you go to TJ in the anime show, it shows signs and like there's a quick snippet of like 10 language signs on the wall saying, the world is still like people still speaking their own languages. Like it's not just English. It's not like a utilitarian, like everyone speaks English. We're all wearing the same gray like hoodie and we're all wearing the same clothes. It's like language and nuance and culture is the same. We're just stuck in like a different planet. And they never did that once in the show. I'm like, oh, they're Tijuana. And then they never, it's like, okay, well, what is space? And to your point, they do a better job of in the anime of showing it like Star Wars. Star Wars is a galaxy far, far away, but the technology is still based in the 1980s. And this is the same thing. It's like the 90s technology is still intertwined with it to make it look like it's together. And this is like kind of a balance of like future tech and thing. It still looks, to John, your credit, it looks like a still stuck in between, which is what the future would be like. You'd have old tech and new tech trying to figure out what it is. But there is, when you talk too long and you go too long, it drowns out the nuance of the show.
I messaged Stu, and so after the opening credit, when they go to Tijuana and they walk into the bar, and I sent him a text. I go, "Is this supposed to be a riff on Desperado?" Because it looked like Antonio Banderas, with the hair, and then they even pulled out the mariachi tequila, and I was like, okay, this has got to be a riff on, and then all that made me want to do is shit. I want to go back and watch El Mariachi and Desperado now.
Yeah. So I watched all of it because I had to as a Cowboy Bebop fan. John, are you going to watch any more of this?
I did. I have watched it. When I was watching Wheel of Time, I was like, man, I'd rather watch a couple more episodes of Cowboy Bebop. So I did watch a bunch more episodes, and I do like the dynamic, and I really like that this show is doing these episodes, these single serve episodes that you could fire up. I skipped episode 2 or 3 because I saw that Faye Valentine didn't show up. So I was like, I want to see how this character, because you only see her a little bit in episode 1, and I was like, oh, how did they portray this character? So I actually skipped ahead to her episode, which is episode 4 or something like that. So I think it is going to work for certain people, and this is one of those shows you can turn on in the background and you'll pick up things, and then if you sit down and watch it, you'll pick up more things. So I think it's going to work for them, and I think a lot of people have been asking for this. A lot of people, when Ghost in the Shell came out and other things, they're like, just do a straight adaptation, bring the anime to life. So now we're seeing an example of what they did with it. Would I rewatch Battle Angel over this? Yeah, for sure. I think Battle Angel does what Rob is saying there. It kind of allows the performance to perform. And obviously there's a budget discrepancy as well. But I would choose that over this. But I think this is a nice show that you can just fire up on Netflix, which is what Netflix is. Netflix is your ultimate time waster. Sitting down to dinner or whatever, you got some time to kill. Fire this up and you can watch it and you will be satisfied, I think.
John, you have to watch the last episode of this damn series.
Oh yeah, it falls apart. Okay, yeah.
No, it doesn't. It's perfect. It's perfect. Yeah. And the problem in the last episode's all guns and fighting and like action, and it's a confrontation between Vicious and Sid. Sid Vicious, Spike and Vicious. So like it is the confrontation. It's a storyline ending. It's everything you want, and it's perfect. And that's why it leaves it kind of to your imagination.
I think I never watched the final disc. Because shout outs to you folks. The only way for us to consume this back in the day was they would release a DVD once every maybe month or something, and it had like maybe, I feel like Cowboy Bebop only had 2 episodes on it, but maybe it had 4 episodes on it, and you would watch it, and just things happened, and I just never got to those final 2 episodes or whatever, that final disc.
And the fighting on the show, because in anime, like when you watch it, and Rob can mention too, in the first episode, anime is a genre that they make Spike look like he's floating. Like when he's fighting, the foot technique of Winchu, like Jikundo, like that type of Bruce Lee, like there's no homage to it because he floats like that character, like Muhammad Ali, like he's the backing moving, and he kind of shifts his shoulders back and forth, and you can't replicate that on a TV show. Like as much as John Cho
they kind of do a little. One of the later episodes, I see him do a couple like cartwheels and stuff like that in the fight.
Yeah, but like,
just like okay.
But the anime is like he's so smooth and he's kind of floating on air that it's like it's you can't like that's like it is what it is. Like either you're trained in that martial arts technique or you're not. So it's not fair because anime is. That's the thing. So, Rob, it goes without saying, are you going to watch any more of the live action show?
So last night I was going through the myriad of streaming services that I have, and each of them have my list of things that and there are movies and TV shows. There's a lot of shows that I have that I'm building up so I can binge them all. And I thought to myself, does this property allow itself to usurp anything else in my list? There's a lot of movies and TV shows that I have, and unfortunately, no. Maybe I will get to it down the road. I suspect I will likely forget about it, much like Doom Patrol Season 2. I'll be like, oh yeah, that's there, and just never get to it. So no, this evening, when the kids go to bed or whatever it is, and the wife is off, in La La Land at 8:30, I will probably not fire up episode 2 of this. I'll probably jump into something else that I have them waiting to jump into. So
live action, no. Will you watch the anime, Rob? Will you go back to watch 22 minutes of this show on an anime form? That's the bigger question I want to know. Will you go back? I'm not
gonna lie that I think I tried to give myself a little bit of time, and I literally, and not hyperbole, like I maybe gave myself 30 minutes in between watching the live action to watching because I felt really tired. Like I said, this is making me feel really sleepy. I feel like this is like kryptonite for me. I was like, oh, John Cho, you're killing me. I as much as I enjoyed it, I don't know if I was still in a sleepy haze when I was watching anime. So I probably will watch another episode of it because it is 22 minutes. It's something I can put on, while I'm making the kids' lunches this week or whatever. So I can put it on. I probably will watch another episode. But is it tonight? Again, appointment viewing for me? Probably not. No.
May I recommend, Rob, that you just watch it
and high
some other stuff. 22 minutes of the show is, once you fast forward through the opening credits, and it's short. So if you're ever just like waiting to figure out what you're doing on, I would say the music is, as you've heard through the show, tremendous. It is like one of the best parts of the show, and you can go through it.
Yeah, there's a little bit more of the cowboy riff and stuff like that in the anime than they put in the live action for some reason.
Bounty Hunter show that isn't that's in the anime is much more tolerable than the one that they do in the live action one. I can tell you right now, it's rough. I'm like, oh boy. But it's much more reasonable on a cartoon and anime form, where these two ridiculous cowboys, like, here's the bounty, like on the world, like rather than
I found it about the same.
Oh man, it's so rough. I was like, oh, this is so cringe. So needless to say, Rob, I beg and plead, continue to just watch it in between when you have stuff going on. 22 minutes, it's a quick show. By the time there'll be episodes that'll bring you in and you're all on board. And just like, because it's a weird show, and there'll be episodes where you're just like, yeah, I'm cool with, I'll pass. But there are some really good ones in there because it's kind of this genre mixer of things. So if you're ever lost in terms of like, I have half an hour to kill in between, may I recommend please going through it and watching an episode here and there. At least it's on Netflix. And like I said before, this is one of the only shows I'll recommend that's the English is the dub is just as good as the subtitles, because it's not often that the anime show does both exceptionally well. And a shout out to Steve Bloom, who does Spike's voice. There's a nuance to being kind of cool and kind of goofy and kind of confident, and he does it really well in the anime form that John Cho, God bless him, couldn't do in the anime show. Like, there's something about his dialogue and speech.
I think he gets better.
He gets better, but like
I thought he was much more charming in the later episodes.
But like, you could see why in the anime Spike is much more charming in that than you. And Jet Black, again, Mustafa does a good choice of emulating Jet Black's voice, but Jet Black is like the curmudgeon police officer. Like, how hard is it to be like yelling at Spike for not collecting a bounty or doing certain things?
Yeah, you could replace, like, they wouldn't do it, but you could replace the voice actor with this guy, and you would be like, that's definitively Jet Black.
Yeah. So and then they haven't introduced the third character yet in the show, which it's going to be really hard. I think the anime does it really well. This ambiguous fourth member to the team. So yeah, it's great. Anyways, okay, so there we go. It is, John, a rating out of 10. What are you giving it?
For episode 1, it's I feel like it's not as strong. I do kind of like the other episodes later on, so I'm gonna give it, like, I think it's still pretty good. I know you guys are hating on it, but I think at least a 7 out of 10 for that first episode.
Rob?
Yeah, just like, I'm not hating on it. It's just it's a love letter that of a romance that I'm just not interested in. So for that, I'm giving it a 5.
Yeah, I'm very critical.
Who's gonna give it a 2?
No, it's like
It's
Rob said
great.
it very well.
Yes.
They care about the IP. They care about it's just they're still. I think it's kind of like that. We're like 10 years away. Like 10 years from now, if they did it with CGI and things being like the void, the volume, all the stuff for like it would be better. It's just at that point where they have some money. Netflix has some money, but spending 200 million on this show, it's close but no cigar. And I think if they wait a few more years to get some things sorted out, it will work. I just think that they were so busy trying to fill out minutes of this show that 30 minutes is probably where it should have been. If you want to do it, you can add a few.
The episode
scenes,
length varies, right? Some of them are like 44, some of them are like 60 and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
but
it's like all over the place.
22-minute episode to like 60 minutes is like just fluff and just unnecessary. I just sit there going, why are they doing this? Why are they adding so much like stuff that doesn't need to be added? So it just things where I think when the anime, like again, it does so much in so little time, and that's when it excels. When you don't have enough time, you jam stuff into it, and this show does a very poor job of just. Yeah, I guess if they're doing 3 seasons of this show, which is like 10, 10, and 4, maybe they stretch it out. It's going to be a lot. I'll also say it's just for argument's sake, it's a 5. There are parts I like, parts I get, parts looks like it's cosplay, parts look like it's part of the show, parts it's off the show. It's all over the place. So I don't hate it, but man, oh man, will I ever go back to it after watching it? I just have to plow through it. I think the anime is still superb. It still holds up. It like we talked about Westerns on the Sidekicks show, and this is, as you watch the show, a perfect kind of space Western if you give it the time and give it the respect and watch the anime show. It's
hard. It's hard if you're not into animation, and it is old. So Rob will probably die that it's got the black bars on the side and stuff like that.
The art is, I think the difference between we say about
the art does stand up, yeah,
the
but
art
it's not
still looks good, and it's hand drawn.
The colors aren't as rich as new animation
but that's
and stuff
because
like that. So it is going to look a little dated.
But it should be, because they're in a world that isn't crisp. They're in a world that things are dirty. Where's the sand?
Now you're saying that the dated look of the anime fits in the theming of the show. Now you're getting kind of
perfect.
Crazy.
Like, where's the sand? You're in a Western. Where's the sand? Where's the darkness? Why things need to look dirty? It's like, this is what the show is about. Like, everything looks crisp. It doesn't look like, it's kind of like people that like dust up or battle damage their armor when they go to cosplay. It's like, if it's so crisp, it's like you've never been out in the field, you never lived in the world. Who has like brand new stuff when that means you've never been outside, and everything has to look weathered.
You could be polishing your stuff up every time you get home.
Man, it's just, yeah, like it's just something that is missing. And I think the show, when you watch the anime, even when you go to TJ the first time, it's has a look to it. Like, they're still kind of even though they're in the future, it's kind of like only a few rich people can travel inner space. Like, if you're just a regular person, like if we were in that time period, you, me, and Rob are not flying in space from colony to colony. We are just stuck on that planet. So there's something about that thing. And even just the red eye, I didn't need to POV view. Like in the anime, it's like red eye and just kind of, it flinches by really quickly, and it shows gives him superhuman abilities. This one, it's like, we're gonna give you full red view, and I'm like, oh boy, this is stuff that you're just doing just to add more to the length of this episode. You're just adding stuff in there. Yeah, I'm happy, John, that you're into this. I will be curious to see if you actually go back to it. I know you say you will, but I have a feeling you won't, just because there's so much stuff coming out.
There's a lot of stuff going on, but I think this is gonna fire for a lot of people.
Yeah,
and the fact
and I'm
that,
happy
like,
that
this formula, I think, is great. I hope not the overall, but the formula of an episode that does something and then has an underlying backstory or whatever. I really hope that they bring that into a couple of their new original properties or something like that. I feel like that's something
honestly,
that's missing.
If it drives,
I don't know if they're trying to distance themselves from TV and maybe not do a TV show, but I think that's what Netflix needs to do. Like they need to have shows that people can just turn on, fire up, and watch. You know, like how many episodes of Criminal Minds are there? Like freaking hundreds, right?
Cowboy
Netflix
Bebop,
needs a show.
but the anime is the binge show. Like if you go through that, and you could bang out 3 episodes at once, and it's like goes by quickly. The show,
I mean,
can't
as
do
far
it.
as content
Live
creation,
action.
I think Netflix needs a brand of shows that are very similar to this in the storytelling. I think would definitely benefit them. Yeah, I don't think every show has to be this long story arc binge thing that you have to watch.
They definitely cherry picked kind of the best storylines or the most interesting storylines to this first 10 episode arc, because there are many episodes where they're in the desert and they're like in small towns and whatnot. They definitely went for, we're going to focus more on big cities and big towns and whatnot. And it really was like, oh, that's the fun of the show. It's like you go big city, big spaceport, and then you're in the middle of the desert and like a whole episode, a ball episode trying to fix the ship that's broken, or like small things that happen, or go to the middle of nowhere and hunt someone. Like, so it's they definitely chose the episodes that fit their narrative. So it doesn't follow episode by episode correctly. It's kind of like, oh, we'll take the first 2, 3, and then we're going to go off and do certain things. Because that, you know, the Faye episode you watch, John, it's like, it's, you know, it's definitely not the same as it was in the anime. So
yeah, well, yeah. We can go all day about the comparisons between the anime and this, but yeah, they took the, like, I think Faye does get locked in the bathroom when they find her later on in the series. So they took that element from the later episode and dropped it in the first one. So
yeah, spoiler alert, she does join the crew. It just they don't, it's not rushed right away. So it's like lots of episodes of building up that relationship with Spike and Jet Black and going through the storyline, and then they drop in Faye, and then they drop in the next person, which is Ein, and then they drop in the last member of the Bebop at the very end. So there is different things. So yeah,
and Rob has played
like even yeah.
Oh, I feel like I'm watching Cowboy. I feel like I'm watching the episode.
Breaks my heart because it's just,
I'm so tired. This is the longest episode.
Did you like Battle? Did you watch Battle Angel, Stu? Did you have any attachment to Battle Angel? Did you like
Not
that?
Really. It
No,
was fine. Like I watched Ghost of Shell, it was fine. Like I didn't have any attachment. Bebop, like to your point, like I watched it at like university. Like it had a very potent point in my life where I'm like, and unlike Gundam Wing, which was like at the time was also out at the time where you had to watch every episode was like 5 minutes of like what you missed on last time on Gundam Wing. Here, like everything was so.
Here's the episode. Oh, we ran out of time.
One episode, you are screwed. This was such a refreshing thing where you're like, oh, let's see what these kooky characters in this week. And if you missed an episode, it wasn't the end of the world because they're just doing something different each like you're like, oh, here's the Western one, here's the sci-fi episode, here's the horror episode, here's the comedy episode, here's the bottle episode. It's like Community where they just did different things each time with these characters that you kind of get to know, and it allows the characters to breathe in that environment. Oh, here, what would happen if they were in a horror movie? What would happen if they were in a comedy? What happens if they're in sci-fi? What happens if they're Western?
They're basically their version of a North American TV show or whatever. But we're losing Rob, so I guess we got to wrap.
Yeah, so this is what it is. All right, John, where can they find you on the internet in the desert of the real?
Yeah, so Heroes World Online will take you to all our social media, the Facebook, the Instagram are most active. So if you have an inquiry or need something or want to find out if we have something, you can definitely message us through there, and we'll post all the new stuff that's coming in, which is coming in like crazy. So if you have a chance, check out our website, Heroes World Online as well, or stop in the store. We're located in the northeast corner of Warden and Highway 7 in Markham, Ontario. We have tons and tons of stuff. So if you're looking to get those gifts, we're seeing a lot of Christmas shoppers. So if you're looking to get gifts for Christmas and things for people for Christmas, definitely drop in. A lot of selection, a lot of toys, a lot of comics, like a lot of everything. So we got a lot of stuff going in. Drop in. We'd love to see you.
Of course, as always, any support, big or small, is most helpful for John and Andre. If you can't go to the store for any reason, they will ship. And if you cannot do either of that, which is we totally understand, please support, like, subscribe, share this podcast or the videos, the numerous videos they're dropping, just because exposure is helpful. As I said numerous times, click that bell to subscribe, all that other YouTuber stuff. You'd be surprised how many people don't know the store exists, and there's always new people moving into the area, so it's good for them just to know that this place exists. You can pick up comic books, board games, D&D, models, action figures, the whole shebang. So please, anything is most helpful. Rob,
hey buddy,
what's going on? What's going on Sidekick Show?
Yeah, so tomorrow night, John and I on the Heroes World Sidekick Show at 8:15 on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. We're going to revisit the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, starring Tobey Maguire, because despite Sony pulling the wool over our eyes and keeping us guessing a little bit longer, we know that Tobey Maguire will be part of the new Spider-Man movie.
Do we? I don't know if we do.
We do.
No
we
Way
do,
Home.
We do.
Coming out December 16th, or sorry, 17th. So we are revisiting the original trilogy. What are our thoughts? It's 20 years later. Does it still hold up? Is it still the definitive Spider-Man 2 still the definitive Spider-Man movie? So we will definitely chat about that. If it's been a long time since you've seen either of these movies or of the three, hey, guess what? They're all on Amazon Prime, actually. You can watch them if you have a Prime membership.
Or Disney Plus.
Do they have them on the Disney Plus?
They do.
Okay, so there you go. So you can watch them there as well. So definitely join John and I tomorrow night, 8:15 p.m. live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.
Thank you. That was very nice. Cowboy Bebop. All right. Man,
oh my goodness. If you want Stu's deep dive into the Cowboy
my
Bebop,
God. All right.
comparison,
See you soon,
definitely
Space
hit
Cowboy.
us up.
This is me signing off. I want to love it so much. I wanted to be part of this.
Give him some time. Let him all over,
John.
Stu. You might appreciate it for what it is.
No. So thank you all for watching. Maybe one day I'll come back and do a full rant of the full 10 episodes and how much it pained me. This was like Klingon pain sticks.
Yeah, if you guys want to see an update of the whole season, let us know.
Oh, please don't watch anymore. That's just this.
It's fine. I think people should definitely check it out.
John, you have the lowest of standards. So that's what it is there. All right. Thanks everyone. Have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye. Yikes.